this episode of Film Stock Reviews, I'm reviewing episode 2 of House of the Dragon, titled The Rogue Prince. Now, this episode was really interesting. It started out with us being introduced to the crab feeders, who are sort of pirates and have their area in stepstones. And the interesting thing about that is that these crabs feeders are just weird in general, the way they look. And, you know, the crabs feeding on human flesh. There's people are still alive, going in and out of different orifices. It's just insane. All the while that's happening, this episode is actually 6 months later after the events of episode 1. We're already half a year forward. Like, I didn't expect it at all. It didn't even say it in any small caption that it was 6 months later or how far we went. It was just mentioned in a conversation between Corlys Velaryon and King Viserys. The interesting thing about that is that Velaryon wants the king to marry his daughter. Yeah, and the reason I say it's interesting is because Velaryon's daughter is 12 years old, and the reason he only wants the king to marry the daughter is because he wants a stronghold for a bloodline and a stronghold on his army and his ships to go out and attack the crab feeders. There's political gain to it, of course there is, but King Viserys sees this as a crazy, crazy idea and does not actually go through with it at all, which is really good. He still has some kind of human antics and form inside of him, and, you know, it's just seeing the aspect and the dialogue between a 12-year-old girl and an older man is just weird, but that's here nor there with that. I mean, it just doesn't cease to amaze me that Game of Thrones is still doing Game of Thrones stuff, especially with how people were judging the first episode with how the mother gave birth in the C-section, how violent that was, and now I'm pretty sure with this episode they're going to talk about the marriage proposal. It's a whole kind of thing. After Princess Rhaenyra is named heir 6 months later, she still doesn't have that respect that she has. She's still, you know, working for her father in the council room, and then all the while the council's trying to figure out a way to find a suitable match for a remarriage. Goes on and on. That's happening. You have Daemon. Daemon's out on his own, stealing dragon eggs, and he's in Dragonstone. And Otto goes to Dragonstone, wants to fight Daemon. But then Rhaenyra comes out of nowhere with a dragon, kind of convinces Daemon to not fight, give the egg back and everything. And it's just almost bloodshed was about to happen. A big fight. But it was a good way to, you know, not start a war within, you know, the whole aspect of what's happening. The interesting thing about this is that Otto's daughter, Alicent Hightower, is there to comfort the king in an interesting way in how things are done. But then by the end of the episode, we find out that the king wants Alicent's hand in marriage. Velaryon is crazy about this. He doesn't like the idea. And we see that Rhaenyra doesn't like it either. I mean, okay, you can pick anybody else to marry, but not my best friend. Okay? Now, Rhaenyra and her aunt also have a heart-to-heart back and forth. And it's interesting because Rhaenyra is like, when I am queen, I will make certain things happen. The aunt's like, well, if you are going to be queen, because if your father remarries, he has a son, that's it. The aunt is still bitter about her not being named queen because of the whole Great Council thing and the recap of what we know what happened in episode 1 and the very, very opening epilogue of that episode. Corlys Velaryon approaches Daemon at the end of the episode to form an alliance because he somehow thinks he can't get through to the king. Why not get through to the king's brother, Daemon, in order to fight the crab feeders and to do everything that they can? Now, this was an interesting episode. The dynamic is there. The acting, it's what saving this show. There are times where it drags on really, really long. The story is good, but if you've read the books, if you know the characters, where everything's going, then you know the spoilers and what's happening and what's coming up. Who's going to be king, who's not going to be king. If Rhaenyra is going to be queen, who marries who gives birth, who is the next in line. You know the whole aspect, you know the whole family tree of the House of Targaryen, the Velaryons. You know all of that and what's happening with Dragonstone, King's Landing, Westeros, Essos. Like, you know everything that's happening. You know everything that's happening. But the aspect of how the show progresses in time is interesting. We do get preview of what's happening in the next episode. It's going to be interesting for sure. Where are the alliances going to lay? Like, did they change some things for the show from the book? Because shows do that. They don't follow the book to a T. They change certain things. Certain main characters are killed off really early on. Certain ones stay on for a long time. The ones that should have died are given more bigger roles in TV shows. Now, I am curious to see what happens in this first season, because it's been announced that House of the Dragon has been picked up for a second season. Yes, so I mean, I'm curious to see how long this is going to go on for. Will it go on until we see Daenerys being born? Who knows? We don't know. I mean, like I said, the acting and the dialogue and the writing is what is saving this show. Even the cinematography aspect also is saving this show. And the reason I say the acting is saving it is because Paddy Considine, Matt Smith, Rhys Ifans, you get those three big actors like this that everybody knows from different movies and shows and TV shows like they've done, to get them in a Game of Thrones prequel series is absolutely tremendous and amazing. They're driving this show forward, especially the character of Rhaenyra, the young actress. I'm curious to see what happens when we get to the stages of when they're older and the older actors who play these characters come in and to play the older characters. Excuse me. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be really fun to see. I like what they're doing with this, and it's fun. It's great to be back in that Game of Thrones universe that everybody knows and loves. So let me know in the comment section below what you thought about episode 2 of House of the Dragon, entitled The Rogue Prince. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What did you think of it? What do you think about the acting? What do you think about the story? And if you read the books, do you see them following the books to a T, or do you see them changing things a little bit? Let me know in the comment section below about all the questions I just asked, and I'll see you all in the next review video. And be sure you tune in next week for my episode 3 review of House of the Dragon.